Dr. Curran, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. And here we are at Newbold on graduation day, the day when awards are given for what's taken place over the last year. Your tenure as principal is just about a year now, or maybe a little bit more. What has the last year been?
Well, David, it's really been quite an exciting year. We've had a range of change of staff, and it's been great to see some new staff come and settle in. You know, as you would remember, there were quite a few retirements around the time that I took over. And so rebuilding the faculty was a major challenge. But we've got a good team and we're very pleased with their performance and what's happening in the classroom and the wider areas of research and contribution to the church life.
So over the last year, you've been building blocks to bring Newbold up again from where it was.
Oh, look, definitely. And there are a range of things that are happening as well. During COVID, we were online in a hybrid mode. We've been back in this hybrid mode with most of our courses this year, but next year we will have the master's program also in hybrid mode, with most of the students choosing to be in the classroom. Now that's exciting because it really brings back life to campus. And whereas when we started after COVID, we had 7 in Scoil House for the first semester, Scoil House in September will be full. In fact, overflowing. We'll have some students staying elsewhere on campus.
And this is wonderful news. I mean, this is so different from 2 or 3 years ago. And so this is like a new spring for Newbold. Just elaborate a little bit more about life on campus over the last year.
Look, even when the numbers have been small, there has been a real community feel amongst all the students who've lived on campus. Extremely diverse, right? Gender, ethnicity, study, but they have really been looking out for each other. And that's been a really exciting part to see, the dynamic that has actually created this community. And they will go away with some really significant lifetime friends and some lifetime memories.
New theological faculty, how are they fitted in and pivoted into the existing team?
Well, this is always an interesting story when you come to English higher education. It's different to what you will find in a number of other parts of the world. If you've grown up here and studied here, it's much easier to know and adapt to what's going on. If you're coming in from another system, it can be a little bit more of a challenge, understanding the process of external examiners, understanding the process of the program board actually owning the course and the assessments. And you know, there are certain things that are unique about UK higher education. Very good things. You know, the quality that comes through is excellent, but it does take at times a little bit of a changing of gears when you come from a different system. You know, when I came here 20 odd years ago, there was still an adjustment. You can perhaps say the Australian higher education system is halfway between the British and the American. So I was aware of some of those things, but it was still an adjustment. And for me, I find it a really positive and constructive environment to work in.
Is it possible to describe the change in the curriculum that is helping future pastors become more equipped for ministry?
Yes, look, there are a couple of key things that have taken place with the curriculum. Over time, the curriculum will always keep on moving and adjusting, and some of that at times reflects different interests and expertise of different lecturers. But there were several things that we really tried to do when we revised the curriculum, and I was part of that process even though I wasn't here back at Newbold. We were really trying to increase the emphasis on pastoral studies and make sure that they had more credits in the program, the undergrad program. But the other really important part was the placement component. Placement has to be core of what we're doing here because it's integrating theory and practice. It's very similar to the process of internship on the other side of graduation, but we don't get as much time because students are flat out, and yet we're trying to involve them in churches and help them put into practice what they're learning in class. Now, we've integrated the assessments of some of these activities back into the course. So there's actually some teeth to some of the placement. And I know that my colleague, Pastor Adrian Peck, who has continued to look after that area, is going to make sure that the teeth that have been put in will actually have some bite there to make sure that we are actually developing practitioners who are ready to start an internship program later. So those are some key issues. If we come to our postgrad program, we've also reintroduced a core module, a biblical theology of ministry and practices of ministry and mission. Now, this is really important because what we want to underscore for all of our postgrad students is that everything you do in ministry needs to be driven by a theology. And that theology needs to be rooted in biblical studies. And so as we look at this particular module, it's an interdisciplinary module in terms of theology, because we're looking at biblical studies, we're looking at theological studies, and we're looking at pastoral studies. And we're wanting people to go through the whole process of trying to exegete passages of Scripture to actually start to provide a theology and theological principles that we can apply in a given context. So that's a key to that restructuring as well. The final key we can add is when Newbold first, back in about 2000, introduced its new master's program with our 3 pathways, biblical, theological and pastoral studies, it was on the condition, as far as the division and the Ministerial Training Advisory Committee, that there was a compulsory semester at the end that would focus on mission and evangelism. Now, over time, due to a range of things, including timetabling, including availability of staff, etc., that became almost anything and everything. With the new curriculum, it is back being focused very clearly on engaging with the contemporary European culture and the European mind, digital discipleship, and also planting and growing healthy churches. So you can see it's come back with that real emphasis. Now, like any change of curriculum, it will take a little while to actually see the impact of that in the field. You know, if you change first year BA, well, it'll be 5 years before they graduate, then they're an intern, you know, so there will be a flow-on effect. But I am confident that the changes that have been made will actually resonate with the dreams of those people who were involved in wanting to see some curriculum change.
In partnership with the Trans-European Division for the last few years, there has been 1 year in mission. As I understand it, that's producing some surprising results.
Look, it's been an incredible program. Students come here for a semester, they sit in class, and then they go on a service project. That service project could be with ADRA, or it could be a church planting type of project. We started with 7. It's interesting to see what actually happens as they go. Over the last 4 or 5 years where this has been operating, except for the couple of years in COVID, 50% of those students have actually come back to enrol in ministry.
That's amazing.
And for me, this is a great opportunity for people to test their call, to actually see whether this is something they really like to do, whether the study is something that they really enjoy. And when you stop and think about the looming retirements right across the division, it's really exciting to see this as an important feeder into our academic programs.
And I'm sure you never intended it to be like that, did you?
Well, we gathered that might happen fairly soon in the piece, but at the same time, it wasn't part of the original plan.
Sure.
And yesterday afternoon, we had a reunion for 5 years of this 1 year in mission and service. And it was great hearing the students who were able to come and the participants who were able to come tell their stories of what they learnt, what they were doing, how they grew, and how their trust in God became even more significant.
It was thrilling a few weeks ago to meet one of those year in mission students at a youth church in Helsinki. He's been there for 6 months, just come again, and you could just see how he grew, just being on location, mentoring the youth team there. It's an inspired idea. It really is.
Look, it's a great idea. And I think the whole idea of mission is really central to what we are, and as a church and as an institution. And what has interested me is the number of people who have been able to come, take some of their existing profession and actually then use it in a mission context. The surprise for some of them is that they actually could do that here, but they actually had to go somewhere else to understand that they could do it here. And so to come back inspired to be able to continue mission, not necessarily overseas or abroad, but in my own backyard, in my own neighbourhood, is really one of the greatest thrills.
Absolutely beautiful. Here we are. It's award day here at Newbold, end of the year. How do you feel the award ceremony went this morning?
Look, it's always great to come to the awards ceremony. I would even suggest that even if things go wrong, it's such a high point for the students that it's a great day. But things didn't go wrong this morning. We had the Mayor here, who was actually talking about the importance of community engagement and her connection in a time of need with people at Newbold Primary School. And so that was inspiring to hear how that little bit of community touched the life of the Mayor some 20 years ago.
Yes, as I remember her saying that she made some curtains for the primary school all those years ago, was invited to get involved in the school, and little did she realise that many years later she'd be here as an official representative of Bracknell Council.
But the interesting thing about that program is it's the trading of skills. So she made those curtains so someone else could actually give her, one of her daughters, some additional tuition to assist with her dyslexia. And for me, this program that is running in the community here is a very rich program. And there are a number of our church members that are involved in that program and making a difference in the community.
A beautiful statement of how church should be.
Very much so. And then our guest speaker, Professor Ivan Brown, was really inspirational. He talked a lot about the challenges he faced, the unwelcome challenges, the challenges he didn't even look for when COVID-19 hit, and he was Director of Public Health in Leicester Council. And when he was actually talking through some of the ways in which people are there for such a time as this, no matter what the challenges are, that's a really inspiring message for graduates who are walking out into many circumstances where they're not quite sure what's waiting for them. And Ivan did a great job there. It was also great to actually acknowledge the contribution of Dr. Radisha Antic, and he has been made a Principal Lecturer Emeritus in his recent retirement.
You had a variety of awards given today. Just want to mention one or two?
Sure. We've obviously got the two key foundational ones for ministry. There is the Bachelor of Arts in Biblical and Pastoral Studies, and if you've already got a degree, there is the Graduate Diploma in Biblical and Pastoral Studies. Then you've got the Masters of Theology, where we've got our three different pathways that I've been referring to before, and the Postgraduate Certificate in Mission, which we've also talked about. But we've also been hosting some international programs in partnership with Andrews University. There has been an MA in Leadership that has been offered throughout this part of the division and hosted on Newbold campus, and we were privileged to have 5 people who have completed that program choose to actually receive their award today at Newbold. We also had 6 people who have completed the Doctor of Ministry in Multicultural and Multi-Ethnic Ministries. And most of that was based here at Newbold as well. And it was great to have them also choose to actually celebrate this occasion here at Newbold with some of their classmates.
Just want to unpack that a little bit more. I heard the title. I think you're saying that they've done research into how the church connects in this multi-faith, multicultural society. Is that right?
That's correct. And that's exciting. I mean, one of our guest lecturers is a graduate of that program, and he's the one that's teaching the module on engaging contemporary European culture.
So it's important that students here at Newbold seek to understand the world out there as it is today.
Well, let's come back and just talk pastoral studies for a moment. Part of the whole program is to exegete the text. Yep. But pastoral studies is also not only exegeting the text, it needs to exegete the context.
Got it.
It needs to be able to try and bridge where life is today and where the questions are that are coming from today, back with theological reflection, back into the scriptures where we'll find some of those answers and then start to build a new theology that we can then apply in context in response to those life circumstances. And that's what ministry is all about. And that's what we're talking about. One of the unique things of Newbold's postgraduate program is the fact that we are expecting our graduates to have a theology driving their ministry.
Okay. Next year, you build on what you've done this year. You'll have some new programs, new initiatives. Do you want to share about that?
Sure. Well, there will be another couple of cohorts of the Doctor of Ministry from Andrews University. One will be on growing and multiplying churches. The other one will be on leadership. And I believe there is a critical mass for both of those. And we're working in conjunction with the Trans-European Division and Andrews University to deliver those modules. But one of the exciting things we're going to do is we're going to restart the English Language Centre. Now, this has been a key part of Newbold's programs since 1935. Obviously in COVID, when people weren't travelling, it's very difficult to offer a very substantive, immersive English language program. And as much as you can perhaps learn the theory of English, there is nothing more beneficial than actually practicing it and using it in a context of real life. So to recover and start to reintroduce the English language programs is very significant. That will also mean that we will take over the operations of Keogh House on campus and again increase the actual numbers of people who will be here. In addition to that, we're looking at ways in which we can cost effectively broaden some of the scope of what we're doing and also move just beyond the professional to even some of the church members. We've got a proposal with our academic regulator, the University of Wales Trinity St David, that is actually going to be looking at how we can offer some postgraduate certificates in areas that will enrich ministry, like counselling, like youth ministry, like leadership. We're also looking to try and find some opportunities for people who want to study some of the things about Scripture or Adventist theology or Adventist history, or maybe even become better preachers. So we're going to tailor our graduate diploma to create some of these options for people who don't intend to be a pastor, but want to actually study and get those skills. And it could be a grad diploma or a graduate certificate. The other thing we're looking at doing is trying to create a one-year certificate in higher education. Now that will have some of the programs that we've got in our first year, Foundations of Biblical Studies, understanding the context of Scripture and some how we should understand Scripture, understanding some core components of theology and what we believe, maybe some things on pastoral studies, and you can actually swap things in and out. If you want to do the languages, you could. If you don't have to. But we'll have some other programs that will come in there and provide a rich experience for a church member.
Before we close this conversation, I imagine there's somebody watching you and me in conversation who's thinking about ministry, about pastoral ministry. And they're wondering if Newbold is the place for them and the calling to ministry. I think you're saying that Newbold is open for business again, right?
Newbold is definitely open for business. The call is a very interesting conversation. And if anyone's wondering what whether this is a call of God or whether this is something that's, just an idea that came overnight, we'd be welcome to have a conversation. But to quote the great Baptist preacher Charles Spurgeon, if you can be happy doing what you're doing, keep doing it. But if you can't, because the call of God is so strong, you need to come to talk to us.
And in this day and age, in these times, we're not just calling 18 to 25-year-olds.
Not at all.
We have place for people who want to come to ministry, second career.
Look, that's been a significant option for many people for many years, but this is becoming a much greater trend right across the higher education sector. And this is one of the reasons why we offer the graduate diploma program, because it's assuming you've already got a degree and we're doing the top up to help you move into the masters. We're giving you the absolute essence of our undergrad program, so that you actually can get a compressed process there, recognising that you're coming as a mature student. And it's exciting to see that. You know, I remember walking into one of the classrooms recently. It was at the beginning. We had some of the 1 year in mission students there. And I said to the students, I said, so how long have you been putting this off? And you saw some heads drop down, and there was silence. And then when there was silence, those same people started to look out the corner of their eyes and see everyone else was silent. And then they started to smile. And they looked at me and said, how did you know? Well, I didn't know about their own individual stories. But what I do know is that there are plenty of people out there that the Spirit is speaking to. And it seems as if there are times when, you know, it's just not quite convenient. It would be too disruptive. It could be too challenging. It might be too hard financially or something else. But the Spirit's still calling. We'd happily have a conversation with you and see how we can help you realise that dream of what the Spirit's calling.
Thanks for sharing today, Dr. Carroll, the story of Newbold last year, today's award ceremony, and a bright hope for the future. And I wish you well for the new term and the new academic year when it begins September.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you very much, David. It's a pleasure.